tell us a little bit about how important are values in a business?
Core values are the core of the business. It's a culture driver, right? And culture means everything.
Mm-hmm.
And it is there. And so to have the values inherent in your company and pull those out, the worst thing any leader can do is go to a conference, come back and say, we're changing everything.
Right.
I learned all this new stuff. Let's do it. And people are just going to leave. Or they're going to look at them and say, yeah, whatever, go back to doing their jobs and nothing's going to change. So, but knowing what the values are helps you drive your decision-making process, knowing who to work with. If you're a Christian entrepreneur and you want to work with other Christians, that can be one of the values inside of it. There's nothing saying you can't have those core values.
Welcome to the show. Nathan Newberry here, your host. I have Jason Pond. He is an expert in all things Wi-Fi / fiber optic. Like, he's built some companies, he's managed some companies. He's a really successful guy. And we have him on the call today to kind of go over the first question I ask everybody, which is, what does high performance mean to you? Jason, tell us a little bit and elaborate about what that is. How do you best describe it in your own words?
Nathan, thank you for having me on the show. And, high performance to me is people that are putting in the effort on a daily basis. It doesn't matter what the effort is, but you're consistent. It's all about consistency over time. If you take consistency over time multiplied by God, you are unstoppable.
Love that. So, Jason, tell us a little bit about, bring us back to the very beginning then of everything. Because you didn't start off with, the golden spoon or the silver spoon in your mouth. You built who you are. You've built your success. Bring us back to the very beginning of how you all started this. What does this journey look like of high performance? When did that click in? When did that sink in? Help us understand that hyperdrive of Jason.
It's interesting enough. So I've been playing in this space, in the entrepreneurial space, for close to 30 years, a little more than 30 years, actually. I started as a lot of kids do, lawn mowing and mowing the neighbors' yards, even doing some paper route, which is where I learned to do sales, was selling papers door to door and around the university in northern Arizona. And, I didn't originally have the drive or say the entrepreneurial spirit. I didn't run out, I helped the neighbors. That's just what I did to gain a little bit, but all my friends like to go we're all, let's go find jobs. And so I did that too. I worked jobs. I worked in swimming instructing. I did lifeguarding. I've done fast food time, right? It wasn't until I moved off into college that I had kind of gotten into more entrepreneurial spirit. I struggled working at places. I found that I just wanted to serve the client. And what I find in corporate America, where I worked as, entry level, is they weren't after necessarily serving the client, or at least the local managers weren't. And so it was a matter of finding a local company to work with. I ended up co-founding an original broadband service provider in 2002, and we were serving people. We're serving the local market in around Bozeman, Montana, and that led to, we started to grow that business. Well, I started to realize that it wasn't necessarily the best fit. I was co-founded, but I wasn't an owner in the company. I was a co-founder. We helped put it together, but the owner was all the money. And so I'd come across an opportunity to buy another company, and it was a company that was struggling. They had gotten into some wireless in West Yellowstone, Montana, and I started to build that. So my wife and I decided, let's move from Bozeman to West Yellowstone. West Yellowstone is a town of about 1,500 people, year-round residents. So we made a leap to go down and join a small community and start building this network, this broadband network out. And at the time, it was actually partly dial-up, old school for those youngins listening. the tones that you might see in some older movies. Those are that's dial up. Like how a fax machine works, which some of the people listening may not even know what a fax machine is. But we decided to get into wireless versions of broadband internet, and we upgraded the wireless network there, and we continued to go. There's one key thing that as I was building this business, I started to realize, I can't be the one doing everything. And I was at the beginning. It was me. I handled all the customer support, all the sales, all the installations, all the network infrastructure. It was really myself. And I would call friends from my volunteer search and rescue time or volunteer fire time. I'd call friends to come help me do tower climbs. We were all safety trained. Wow. So it was easy. I'd have them stand at the base of the tower. They'd help me out. And then I'd help them in their businesses with their computers and things like that. And it was a really nice bartered type service with that. But my wife helped do administrative type stuff like billing and invoicing. And, we would sit around and stuff envelopes once a month and physically mail out stuff. So it was really a grind until we got to a spot where I was like, I need some help. And hired my first employee, and he was a great he was great at it. He actually called me and said, "Hey, do you need some help?" And I went, maybe, right? That could be a great idea. So we hired him part-time. He came on 2 days a week, helping me do residential installations. And then we moved, I started to realize in internet, there's this recurring pattern that happens about every 4 years. And it's gotten a bit faster now. And people listening might understand it from like, oh wait, the new iPhone 16 is coming out, right? Well, before the 16, there was the 15 and the 14 and however many other ones prior to that. We can go all the way back to the original, which I don't even know if that was actually the one or not. So this iteration inside of broadband wireless was a 4-year cycle. Every 4 years, things upgraded. And I'm like, this is crazy. I'm having to reinvest, continue to grow. How do I build this? Broadband is getting more and more crazy, right? I bought the company in 2005 before it was important to people, especially businesses, but it wasn't like a household type. Remote work wasn't a thing. Facebook wasn't really that big. YouTube was nothing at the time. And smartphones were almost nothing. I had a smartphone, but it was because it was a Palm Pilot combination for the old timers out there that know what a Palm Pilot is. So anyway, we moved through to be able to move into what's next. I started attending conferences, starting to realize other people are doing other things out there in the world. What are they doing? And fiber optic building was one of those things. And I went, wait, if I design this fiber optic network the right way, I never have to put any of our infrastructure in the ground. I can just use upgrade electronics on either side. And that kind of clicked. I actually flew to Kentucky to visit a friend who was running an open house in the industry. And he showed me how he was doing it. And I went, on the way back, I wrote the whole business plan of how I was going to do it, how I was going to fund it, how we were going to take care of it. And then started going after money, hiring more, finding additional people. And then I put it all in. And that summer, when I was putting it in, I had 3 people working for me and realized I cannot be the one sitting on the machine doing this work. I've got to be running the business and working on the business. So I started to look for ways to work on the business, which led to an actual sale of the business and trying to work with other people to grow faster, which led into another acquisition. That acquisition was acquiring 16 people in a bigger company. And I started to build a leadership team. I started to build people below me, leaders to lead leaders, and grow that company. And that garnered some attention. Ended up selling that company a little over 3 years into it, about 3.5 years into it. It wasn't intentional. I didn't like we had actually started it as a company we wanted to have forever. And the opportunities came along. We won that. We took that company and won a whole lot of money through some grant funding. And then that led me into realizing I love to lead leaders. I love to coach people on how to become better at their jobs so that they can teach other people to continue to be better, which is where I've led into coaching and doing coaching now, where I coach executives that are running companies that need to build that leadership team. They're building a lot of people to replace work that isn't following the best pattern that you and I have recently learned about.
Mm-hmm. It's not easy to do leadership. And most of the time, I remember there's different books out there, but oftentimes we start out as the technician in the business and you transition to those leadership roles that kind of end up where it's buying back your time every moment. And it sounds like you've done that in your own business and acquired other people, which is always easy. It isn't always easy because you're inheriting other people and those character connections with the current team and the challenges there, and then even selling it and the hopes of people feeling like they're going to lose jobs. I mean, there's a lot that goes involved with not only building a team, but building up a team.
It's a very true statement. You talk about the technician versus the entrepreneur. The E-Myth is the big, that book is what kind of was one of the instigators, aside from a bunch of Patrick Lencioni's books. The 4 Obsessions of an Extraordinary Executive was his first one I actually listened to. When I sold my company, I got huge into audiobooks. And prior to that, I didn't read a lot of books. Prior to 2016, I was busy grinding and working and doing. I didn't know what personal development was. And really, we talked about high performance at the beginning. If you're not doing personal development, you can't be a high performer. You're running in what I like to call is the infinite insanity loop. And people know the insanity term of doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results. But what's interesting is the insanity loop is 3-dimensional, not 2-dimensional. Because if you add time to it, the longer you do the insanity loop, the narrower that loop goes and the shorter the loop gets, because everybody else is moving along in time without you. So how do you do personal development? How do you get into those things? Which is where I learned about how to build a leadership team. The company I went to work for that I sold to in West Yellowstone, I sold to a much bigger ISP, or broadband service provider, and they were servicing a very large territory in Idaho. They had 60-ish employees or so, over 10,000 customers, and no executive team. They had a couple people, the directors in the business, doing the work, and we're like, how this structure seems off. There's stuff falling through the cracks. There's balls getting dropped. I interviewed around the company, and when I first came on board and said, what's the biggest thing? And ball dropping was like a huge part. So I worked with the directors and we built an executive team to start to work forward. And now that company is doing very well. They cover parts of northern Nevada, eastern Idaho, eastern Oregon, all of Idaho, southern Idaho. And they've gone and got more money. They're continuing to do expansion, and they've used the systems that we started to put in place. But you've got to have that leadership structure and leadership development inside of that to start to be able to go. When we bought the company in Hamilton, Montana here, we bought a culture, right? You talked about buying a culture is difficult. It is. I came in, I said, I bought 16 employees. I can't come in here and just start changing things day one, right? That's going to create a mutiny, for lack of a better term. New captain in the ship, the pirates are going to go mutiny on you. I've been watching Pirates of the Caribbean here recently. So but we sat down. I took everybody off site. We bought them all dinner. We had a nice dinner, catered dinner at a local conference room. And we did a core values building exercise. So I could learn what are the core values inside this company, because they're inherent in the company. This company was 20 years old. other than the previous owner leaving, I was new in here. I had to learn what they were. And so we learned them. And then we started to shift them and adapt a little bit of the culture into what my wife and I expected to be the proper or the appropriate culture. And we started to just kind of make that small pivot slow. Change management has become a big thing. So when I sold the company, the big thing that we did was we over communicated the sale. We didn't lose anybody in the first year after we sold. Like that.
Tell us a little bit about how involved, like how important are values in a business?
Core values are the core of the business. It's a culture driver, right? And culture means everything. And it is there. And so if you, to have the values inherent in your company and pull those out, the worst thing any leader can do is go to a conference, come back and say, we're changing everything. I learned all this new stuff. Let's do it.
Right.
And people are just going to leave. Like or they're going to look at them and say, yeah, whatever, go back to doing their jobs and nothing's going to change. So, but knowing what the values are helps you drive your decision-making process, knowing who to work with. If you're a Christian entrepreneur and you want to work with other Christians, that can be one of the values inside of it. There's nothing saying you can't have those core values. Dave Ramsey's is a prime example of that. The having a value of respect, defining what respect is, because respect for you and respect for me may be different terminology. So you have the name of the word and you have the values, but the importance of those values is so critical to understanding how, because if you're all aligned, you start to row in the same direction. And if you're thinking about a rowing team in the Olympics that we just had not too long ago, those rowing teams are in sync, going in the same direction at an immense speed, and it works well. But if one rower was off, even just one person was out of alignment, you're going to lose the race.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Tell us some more about some of these high performance standards that you had to grow into that were really critical and helpful for you to adapt and to apply not only in the leadership team and the companies that you've had, but personally too. What are some things that you've had to install that's helped you achieve your success?
Yeah, so when I went to go buy the company in 2017, I had lined up a bank. I had lined up all of the things. I'd quit my job. We had moved from Idaho back to Montana, and the bank came back and said, no, we're not going to fund it. And at that point, I started to realize I need to figure some things out here. I need to really kind of figure out what it is. And so I looked at my day and I said, when I knew I needed to start physically reading books instead of just listening to the audiobooks. Like listening to the audiobooks got me a lot of information, but it was always pressured on me, especially by my dad, that said you should read the book, not just listen to the book. And if you listen to Alex Hormozy, he actually tells you to do both at the same time, which I find very challenging to do so far. But reading the book, so I said, okay, when can I read? I don't read a lot. I get distracted really easily if there's a noise or a sound. I'll look over to see what's going on. And what can I do to set myself up for success in reading? Well, 5:30 in the morning was that time. It was get up at 5:30 in the morning. That way I'm up before the house is up. The rest of the kids my kids weren't getting up until 6:30, 7 o'clock to get ready for school. So I could get in 30 minutes to an hour of reading in the morning. And I started that in right before we bought the company. I started listening to podcasts. I actually was listening to Masters of Scale by Reid Hoffman while I was my daily routine was trying to buy the company, but I was working with an East Coast company to try to buy this local West or Mountain Time company. So I'd get everything done early in the morning, and then I'd have the rest of the day to help build. I built my dad's workshop for him, and just kind of kept this routine and kept adding little things to the routine. Here recently, not recently, so it's 2024. In 2020, I'm like, I need to get continued to get healthier. In 2019, the doctor said, you need to get healthier. I started a diet change, lost some weight. Was able to do that just through diet. Decided I want to start hiking. The best way to start and get into anything is with an accountability partner. So I agreed to get a puppy, COVID puppy. And Oreo is his name for those puppy lovers out there, the dog lovers. He's a black dog with a white belly, so fits the name perfectly. And that was my accountability partner. I learned how to train him. I never trained dogs before, but I went and hired a canine trainer and learned how to train him. I'd worked with actual search dogs when I was on search and rescue in West Yellowstone. I loved working with the dogs. So I learned how to train them. We go on hikes every day. We started off, I couldn't hardly do a mile on a hill. I was that out of shape. I would get winded and go. Today I can hike, 3.5, 5 miles, 6 miles, 10 miles. It does, I don't get sore, don't get winded. It's been a world of change, but it took time. And I think that's one of the biggest turnoffs. People don't put in the effort, put in the time. Recently this summer, I decided the next level of iteration was going to the gym. And only time I've ever used the gym was in high school. I was a C gym student. How do you get a C in gym class? This guy right here. I'm an example of how to do that. You do as little as possible to just get through the class. I was the odd number, so I didn't have a partner. And in the class, I was very, very shy growing up, which led to other different issues that accumulated over the years. And I had to deal with those. I still am shy, even some today. I like to listen. I don't like to, I've talked a lot on this podcast, but sharing the story, but it's actually when in person, it's quite a shy experience. And so to get into the gym, to get to know it, to understand it, I hired a personal trainer and started going with the personal trainer. But I'd only go to the gym if I was working with the personal trainer. Then, joined a new coaching program. Part of the program is 45 minutes of sweat. Well, I was already hiking every day, but I took that as it's my gym time. So I go to the gym 3 days a week. And I'm continuing to work through that fear of the gym that I had before, because now I actually understand the exercises. I'm understanding the machines, and I'm getting better. Still using a personal trainer 1 day a week to elevate and continue to have that extra accountability on that side.
I've seen that being so helpful for me as well. Accountability with so many things is the key for success, because oftentimes even group programs or even courses, they only go so far. They only list out some of the things, but you need some person to hold your, feet to the flame to get the job done and doing that. When you're coaching your clients, Jason, especially with, new entrepreneurs and then entrepreneurs that are just listening to this because they love the high performance and the things that we talk about here of just learning some of these new tips, what would you say? There's a lot of them, the sales and marketing, fulfillment and customer service and things. What would you say that are really important for a business to grow and scale? What would be the keys for success for scale?
To scale any business is is the ladder of success is you've got to replace the things you don't like to do first, right? And that, if that's administrative, hire an assistant. A lot of people get protective over their email. I was one of them, but I hired my first assistant in 2019 and I haven't looked back. I've had an assistant even after I sold the companies. The assistants went with them. I didn't have an assistant for about 2 months after that, before my wife was like, for the sake of our marriage, you need to get an assistant. You're driving me crazy. She handles all the books in the family. So if I'm not turning in receipts, and she doesn't want to harp on me. She knows I'm moving forward. Trying to move fast. She knows it frustrates me to think about those things. So we hired an assistant. So hiring an executive assistant or a virtual assistant part-time, to execute on the administrative tasks that frustrate you, is the first step to take in any business. You know, a lot of times, you know, we hear, especially from like Dan Martell, he's talking about, you know, people replace talent first. You like to do those things though. Mm-hmm. That's why you got in the business to begin with. If you're in the trades and you like to build houses and you like to do framing, then keep framing. Hire somebody to do all of the estimates, all of the billing, all of the closeouts, all of the stuff that you don't like to do, or what's even worse is it's taking away time at night from your family. And so you're burning more, you're burning the candle at both ends, as they say. And that's a bad recipe. Usually ends up in failed businesses and failed marriages.
That's so true. So true. Yeah. I always feel like a key driver too, Jason, tell me what your thoughts is you have to make money. And the bottom line is you need to know how to do sales, you know, generate leads and do whatever it takes to start doing that so you have money to even replace yourself. But even then, like you're saying, most of the time people they hit some ceilings of constraint because they feel like they're doing it all themselves. And then it leads into some of the challenges you're dealing with. Or, you know, your health goes sideways, your marriage goes sideways, your relationships, you know, your money spending. There's, you know, other demons come out when you're trying to do so much and not trying to focus on what is so important and focusing on those key things. I love it. I love the insight, Jason. Tell us one odd thing I always like asking people sometimes is, what is their everyday carry? When you leave the house, what do you pack? What do you carry? What are some things that you do? What do you bring?
Are you talking physical things, or are you talking about the physical things?
Physical things.
What do I
bring?
What
do you carry? What's your everyday carry?
Every day. So if I'm leaving the house to go places, I'm pretty basic anymore. You know, it's a wallet. The keys to the car and a pocket knife. Like that's it.
There you go.
My vehicles all have stuff in them. They're always like, I was on search and rescue for 11 years. I'm built for, every vehicle has some sort of an emergency kit to go.
You're in Montana too. Is there something with a trigger there?
I absolutely love. So I am a gun. Some people might call me a gun nut, but I'm probably not to the extreme that a lot of people are. I don't own a ton. I own a fair share. I have a gun range on my property that I shoot at often. I don't actually conceal carry every single day. I got out of a habit of it. It's one of those that is when you really start to think about the ramifications that can come from it. Is it really worth it, or is it worth the conversation of de-escalation? And so I trust my de-escalation. I've got a pocket knife if I have to go into super close encounter something. And I don't worry about animals where I go hiking at every day. If I go into the backcountry hiking, I've got bear spray, and I do pack. I usually do pack one of my favorite 45 caliber pistols. I'm a 1911 fan. I love them. I love working on them too. Gunsmithing is one of my hobbies. So
that's awesome, man. Well, I've appreciated you so much jumping on the call, teaching us some more about leadership, your backstory, and some really key fun things about you, Jason. How can people follow you? How can they connect with you further? How can people stay in touch with you?
So I've got multiple ways. I'm on every social media platform out there, but Instagram, message me on Instagram, follow me on Instagram. It's at Mountain Freedom Coach is my handle on Instagram. And that's the best way to go, follow and start watching some of the content. I'm putting out content every day there that leads to other sources. You can find me on LinkedIn, and you can get at Jason Pond is my YouTube channel for some weekly YouTube content, including my own podcast.
Amazing. We appreciate you jumping on the call with us, Jason, and going through everything. But until next time, thank you for joining us here at the High Performance Podcast.
Appreciate you, Nate.